You're listening to Served Up, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Bridget Albert, also known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with decades of experience. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry. Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. Today I sat down with Heather Greene, the powerhouse blender and whiskey storyteller whose bourbon has been turning heads and winning hearts everywhere it goes. Known for her fearless flavor experiments, sharp wit, and ability to make even the nerdiest whiskey details exciting, Heather brings serious craft with a playful edge. In this conversation, we're diving into bold ideas, the creative spark, and the barrel-aged magic behind her bourbon. So get ready. This one's going to be fun as a perfect pour. So sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite cocktail, and enjoy the show. Heather, welcome to Served Up. I am really excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Bridget. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Can you tell our listeners a bit about yourself and how your creative path really led you into a journey of the whiskey world?
Good question. You know, it was a different era when I got into whiskey. It's not like I went to the high school guidance counselor and said, you know, I want to be a whiskey expert, author, whatever you call me. And I'm going to write a book on it and drink it and make a life in it. They would have been like, well, actually, the first thing that would have happened was they would have said, well, that tracks, get back to math class. But
you and I would have been such good friends in high school.
Yeah, I wasn't like the most solid student, let's say. That didn't happen until a little later. As I think a lot of people who are creative have that story in high school. But anyways, and, you know, I meandered through as a musician and your early adulthood. I traveled the world as a musician, a piano player, singer, did all sorts of really fun, cool stuff. And, you know, like many musicians, I was in New York City. You bartend at the side. You bartend, you work in restaurants, you hustle, you know, and you cut your teeth on lots of different things in New York. And from there, just one thing led to the next. And, you know, I thought there were a lot of synergies between music and whiskey and the creativity needed in order to create like wine or any distilled spirit, other distilled spirit. You need to have that creativity. You need to shut off that chatter in your brain at the end of the day and really kind of be in tune to the sensual world to be able to do something like that and make it. And I was really intrigued by that. I was really intrigued by how there's that discipline. There was chemistry, speaking of chemistry and math and measurements and things like that, behind distilled spirits. But at the end of the day, you know, it is something really creative as well. So it's that combination of creativity with the technical aspects of making whiskey that were really cool to me. And as a musician, it's kind of the same, right? I mean, you're practicing scales. You have to practice your vocal range. You're doing all that disciplined work in the background. And then when you're on stage or when you're ready to write, you just have to do it.
Do you remember your first sip of whiskey?
I do. Actually, I don't in a lot of ways because I had a Binkie and my great grandmother was from Scotland and the other side were from Ireland. And the way to ease gum pain was to dip the Binkie in the whiskey and put it in your mouth, you know. Mm-hmm. I do remember, you know, I know that I'm not supposed, you know, I know this is not supposed to be, I know that's not legal to be drinking at age 2, but, you know, when I was sick, I do remember I think it was one of my grandmas, somebody gave to me honey, a little whiskey and lemon when I had the flu. I don't know which grandmother it was, or if it was my great grandmother, but I remember very distinctly not liking it at all. But, I was really sick with, I think, pneumonia or something. So, there's that. And then there's the naughty high school days, right? Where you're just like somebody spiked Orange Crush with Jack. And there's that. And then there's when you got serious and you took it as something, as an art form. And that happened when I was in New York City. I was working at Union Square Cafe, and that's a Danny Meyer's restaurant. And he's amazing and wonderful and such an inspiration, such a great businessman, entrepreneur, restaurateur. I think everybody in our industry really knows who he is. There was a mandatory whiskey tasting class one day, so we could learn how to talk about it. And that's when I was like, there's something here. That's interesting.
That's amazing. For me, it was working at the Bellagio, and same exact thing, having Fred No come in and Booker.
Oh, cool.
Booker.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And it was such an aha moment. And I don't believe that a lot of folks get to have that inspiration early on, right? So if you maybe work at a little mom and pop shop and not one of the hot bars like Milady's, in New York or Brooklyn, right now, wherever, that you want to get those opportunities. But when you do, it definitely can change your perspective on a spirit, I feel. So I think that's really cool that yours really started with some education. So, with that said, because you are an entrepreneur, and you went for it. And I want to talk about it. I think it's incredibly inspiring. What were some early challenges that you faced, and what really propelled you into the whiskey space overall?
Sure. So after that, tasting at Union Square Cafe, where we had to approach whiskey like wine at the time. This was before whiskey was really like super hot, like whatever. I'm playing music and just running around New York City. I liked my life. It was a good time. And my husband and I ended up in Scotland. We ended up at Edinburgh, and I was at the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society because I was doing music, and in between touring, there wasn't a lot to do. So he and I were like, he's like, you should go out and get a job, while he was in grad school, and, all day, every day. And we were young, and I was like, okay, cool. So I went out and got a job drinking in the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society in Edinburgh. It was really fun. That's just the approach to life first is entrepreneurial in and of itself. So like always following your curiosity, landing on your feet, the level of uncertainty I was always uncomfortable with. So because, as a musician and then living in Europe and traveling like I have, you have to have a comfort level with not really quite knowing what's next. And I think that's what ultimately prepared me years later for a job in making a whiskey company come alive, because you have to be comfortable with everyday uncertainty and know and trust that you will land on your feet, because otherwise you might as well just do something really safe, right? If you need that level of safety, that's not where you need to be. So I never really had that level of career safety. I think I tell a lot of people, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you also have to be comfortable with living with fear as your co-pilot, because that's just the way it goes, and uncertainty. And over time, you're like, I'll make it through. So from Scotland, ended up, back in New York after a couple years working for William Grant and Sons, and was a Scotch ambassador. Didn't know there was such a job that I could have. Did that for a while. And when I did that for about 5 years, and then was like, that's it, I'm going back. I think, I started losing my music touch because whiskey just took over, and it was really cool for a while. And because I'm somebody who follows the curiosity, I feel like I have like every couple of years, I like to change things up, So I was going to quit that and go back into music. And then I got a publishing deal, and it was too good to pass up to do that. So then I wrote a book on whiskey, and then God, I was an entrepreneur from that, had my own business consulting and working, and then started Milam Greene came down and joined Marsha Milam and a great team down here. And that was born.
Such a great story, and not a clear path.
No,
right? Not a clear path. The opposite of a clear path. Actually.
No, there was no, yes. I was, there wasn't a clear path, but I benefited from being just before when everything got really crowded. So I was, when there were opportunities to write books or have these cool jobs early on, or, I was for a long time the go-to person, behind the scenes, lots of working with brands, lots of helping blend and batch and write and all that kind of stuff. So, now it's a much more crowded arena. If somebody wants to start out, there's lots and lots of competition. There was not very much when I was around.
And I feel like a lot of barriers as well. Well, let's start with your book here on Whiskey Distilled, The Populist Guide to Water of Life. What I love about your book is that it's really written in your voice. It's really written in this friendly.
That took a long, that was not
boring.
easy.
It's not academic. Like, you actually can sit and read this on a Sunday morning with a cup of tea or coffee and not be rocked to sleep, right? It's actually really fun to read because it is in your own voice. And it makes so much sense to me the way that you approach this book, because it's not just for beginners. It's also, I think, filled with some aha moments for whiskey experts as well. So can you talk a little bit about your book and really what inspired you to write this book?
Gosh, that was a really exciting time. So first of all, I want to say that when I wrote that book, pre-AI, by the way, these are my words, every single one. That is actually the second book I wrote. The first book I wrote, the second draft, was, thank you for that conversational tone. That was really hard for me to nail. So it took me like a year to write the first draft, and I sent it to my publisher, and she was like an amazing editor. She's like, you have a lot of information here, but this is just dry, technical, we can't really work with this. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was just surprised. I was, I took the geek approach, and then this is this yeast, this does this, just got real geeky. I felt like I had something to prove. Maybe the first draft to, as it worked, there were so many guys around me. It was like really nerdy. I think I just maybe felt like I had to be more scientific than I needed to be. And she was like, my editor, and she was incredible. And she was like, can you just go back and write this just like you're talking to somebody at a bar? Like, take all this technical information. You obviously know what it is. But now she said, candy coat the science. And I always remember that for writing because, that's what it is. It's delivering. It is a technical book, but it's delivered in a way that I discovered it. And I went back and just buried myself, and I rewrote that whole book in then 10 weeks. So it took me 10 weeks to do the second draft. And I just went back and just spit it out in my own voice. And that's what happened. And that's probably the biggest response I get from that book, is that it's like easy to read, not in a kid's way, or I'm not pandering or insulting the reader. It's just like making it interesting and fun and light.
I think you invite the reader to join you. And I've had the book for a long, long, long time. And then I was sent another copy of your, the same book. But I've already had your book in my collection. I had already read it. And I am a big fan of it. And I think that for those that have anything to do with educating a team, their bar staff, whatever it may be, or just even yourself, right? Because you're curious about whiskey, it is still so very relevant. It is still so very relevant.
It is.
People's like a modern classic.
Thank you. A modern classic.
Cool.
That's I hear that a lot. I wish I could go back and do another edition just to update. There were a lot of recommendations in there that you're just like, there's no way you can buy that now. And that's the other advantage I think I had as a whiskey person, is that, I could go out and buy Pappy 23 and figure out what, taste it. I have, vintage whiskeys from Scotland. My collection's out of control, but that was a time where we could taste the best in the world and, really learn. I think now I do question, like, how do people learn now if it's so cut off from some of these old and vintage and these high indexing on like auction houses whiskeys that we didn't have to deal with So, now when I make whiskey, I have the taste of some of these incredible 50-year-old products from Scotland, or these rare warehouse whiskeys from the Kentucky, or old Japanese whiskeys. And so I think I've been really lucky. And I think for Milam Greene, it's been the reason why our whiskey's been so well received by critics, is
Yeah.
that we've got the people who have made it, who are making it with me, Rick Monroe, Marlene Holmes, the rest of the team, like they've cut their teeth on some of the best whiskeys in the world. It's
Yeah,
important.
it's amazing. Like, you didn't just fall out of thin air, and you've really surrounded yourself with a
Mm-mm.
team of people that are brilliant at what they do. So, since Whiskey Distilled has come out, the whiskey world has shifted, as you just mentioned,
Oh my God.
quite a lot. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
What changes have excited you the most?
Well, the changes that excited me the most is what we're trying to do is whiskey that expanding whiskey out of Kentucky to explore how climate, for me in particular, how different climates affect the barrels. That's something that I got really, really passionate about. And how how the climate affects the barrels, and how you can make great whiskeys with provenance from different places and offer up some new flavors without the trick is to offer new flavors without busting the palate into something that's like, whoa, that's way too different. So you want to, from a taste profile, you want to be able to have the consumer say, wow, that's whiskey and I really like it, but not have it be something that's completely off the charts, which is what I think happened early on in the whiskey community when the first craft distillers came out. So as a buyer of whiskeys and then working with Tommy Tardee at the Flatiron Room, tasting all these different things and discussing and teaching using these new craft distillers, it was a little rough around the edges for the consumer. So it's finding that sweet spot. And that's what I'm really interested in.
And you
So,
really have. So let's talk about, what is the heart and soul behind your line of whiskeys?
well, I'm glad you asked. It's kind of fun. One of the things that really is the idea of Texification, we call it. And that's when it seems to me, so after being in New York for all that time, I come down to Texas, right? And it's like, I never, ever, ever thought I'd be living here. I never thought that would happen. Again, that entrepreneurship spirit, you're just like, all right, let's go ahead and do it. My husband has the same spirit in him. And so we decided to take this opportunity and come down here. And so the heart and soul is Texification. It's when you come, or even when you go to any place, it becomes a little part of you. For our whiskey, it's how the climate will affect the liquid in the barrel to create something unique and different without busting that palate. So that was really important to me. So the way we do that, the heart and soul, is we take that Kentucky whiskey. We do create whiskey in Kentucky. Our team goes specifically up with our mash bill, with our sweet mash, with our specs. And then we start and we do as much aging as we can to finish it in Texas. We call that Texification. Plus, we have our pot distillation in Texas. And then that creates that really robust Texan feel that people know and love, who love that real big Texan flavor. Now, when you take both of those together, you create that sweet spot that I'm telling you about. You create a little bit of uniqueness, difference without going too crazy. So you have something that people drink and think that's really nice and refined and a little different. And so that was really exciting to me. And it was exciting to me because I felt like, coming from the Scotch background, did a lot of work on cognac and Armagnac. I love Japanese whiskey. And you see, when they create products, or when a Scotch collector, for example, and you may know this, when they have whiskeys on the shelf, they'll have Isla, Highlands, Lowlands, they'll have different styles. If you're a wine person, you're going to have Chardonnay, you're going to have a white Burgundy from France, you're going to have Cab, you're going to have a Rosé, you're going to have a varied, depending on the occasion. And it was really frustrating to me coming from that and coming and getting deep into American whiskey. And it was like, well, we're all drinking from the same state, the same 53-gallon barrels, the same ish mash bill, the same everything. And it's just like, well, what about some other trying to do something just a little different? And that's really, really what I wanted to do, to offer that refinement, offer a different style that wasn't too crazy, but could fit in everyone's shelf.
Yeah, you've done that just brilliantly. And when someone opens one of your bottles, what story do you really hope that they feel in that first sip?
I want them to feel that there's an incredible amount of care and thought and community that went into that bottle. We really need to think about when we make whiskey, especially in Texas, and how we came about our team to create the style of the two. And that was really just like all spirits in the history of spirits and wine. It's never just the process. It's what else was happening in the world to create it. The people. What were the tax structures? And we know that whiskey and taxes have a long, sordid history. What were the economics that defined it? What, at the time, what's going on around it that creates that product? It's never just the process and the product. It's a function of and a result of the people and the environment it exists in. And at the time when we created this product, one of the things that we had to deal with, we're in the middle of this beautiful area of Texas called the Hill Country. And it is just stunning. It's lays on top of something called the Edwards Plateau. It's a limestone shelf. We know the limestone is porous and, water weaves in and out, and the minerals and the purification that can happen on that. And it's, the ecosystem is beautiful. You have birds of prey flying above you. There's there's stag, there's ranch country, there's beautiful paths that I bike a lot through these paths. Like, it's prickly pear, the sun sets, it's dark skies with stars. It's incredible, right? But what it doesn't have, and we all know what happened this year, in Hill Country with the tragic flooding, what it doesn't have is like water flowing as plentiful as you would have in other places, right? There's drought issues in Texas and the West. So when we first decided to make Milam Greene, we wanted a column still. In fact, we bought a column still, a giant column still. For those who don't know, who are listening, a column still is a giant type of still you can make your whiskey in, but it's a bit of a water guzzler, a much more of a guzzler. And then you have your waste to deal with. So once you create that spirit, where are you going to put it? And we're in the middle of the country. It wasn't realistic. We took that back and we got batch distillation, those pot stills, so that we could deal with some of the restrictions and the limitations of our environment around us. And the way to do that was to split and say, hey, why don't we make some in Kentucky? What do we have here that we can use that's free, that can say something about our whiskey, that can differentiate us, that we can monitor, that we can call our own? And that was a really unique climate. And that sent us on a 6-year journey, resulting in some new products that we have coming out now.
Well, let's talk about those products. Would you like to take us through them?
Yeah. So earlier this summer, we released something called what we call The Answer. And that was our first product. I was really we're proud of all of our products, but it really kind of put the line underneath what we try to do. So when I first came down to Texas, we started distilling in both places, maybe a year later. We separated some casks at birth. We separated casks from birth. We basically distilled a batch in Kentucky, and we took half and we brought them immediately to Texas to age. And we kept half in Kentucky, and we monitored those over 6 years. And then the idea was to get at the heart of what a Texan whiskey really is. By definition from the TTB, it's like one thing, but I wasn't interested in that. What does it mean to be a Texan whiskey from a taste profile and the environment that shapes it over time? That's what I was interested in. I wasn't interested in the legalities of what you call a Texan bourbon, because we can change things like that. But for me, it was, what does the environment do to it? And the only way to do that is to take that benchmark from Kentucky to really, because we all know what a Kentucky whiskey tastes like. So what does it taste like if you just isolate it into an environment like hill country? That's what we did. And we released it. It's called The Answer. Everyone had asked us, what does Texan environment do? What does it taste like? These are just constant questions. And so we were kind of joking around one day and we're like, well, here you go. Here's the answer. It wasn't supposed to be a cocky kind of title, which somebody laughed and was like, that's pretty presumptuous. I'm like, well, it's kind of, we're trying to be funny too. Like, here you go. Here's your answer. And we saw a tremendous difference. And from a chemical analysis, from a taste analysis, I'm telling you, I was so excited. It told me that, it just opened this whole world to me, Bridget. It just was like, wow. Imagine understanding, if everybody really understood it, what their environment does, like what kinds of whiskey world and taste profiles we could have, and, playing with it as an actual ingredient. That's what we call Texification. That's what it does to our whiskey. That is the undercurrent now of everything we do. It always was, but it was just having the scientific facts behind it, and the taste was just so awesome. Then we took that. That was really geeky, right? Our geeks loved it. It's already sold out. If anyone can find it, good luck. I don't know where it ended up. There were only 800 cases of that experiment. And then we encourage people to blend, which is what we do. We take the two and put them together, and we created. So from that, I knew we were working on something really special in the background. And to me, The Answer underscored what we were about to release, which is something called Provisions Bourbon. And that is the combination of the Kentucky distilled whiskey and the Texan whiskey combined, with as much aging of that Texan environment on top of that Kentucky whiskey as we can manage in our warehouses. And it's significant. It's very significant what's happening in Texan barrels, no matter where it comes. It's just how you use them. So we took that, and I was also really interested in low proof. I think the world is getting tired of these big, bold flavors. So coming from one state and one profile. So we brought it down to 40 proof, but still gave it a little pop and spice and personality. And then we priced it at $34.99, something that we've never done. And I wanted it to be a whiskey for the people.
Yeah, totally a whiskey for the people. So approachable. What a great price point. But also something for those who want to just enter the world of whiskey or curious about it. What a great starting point.
Yeah. And you know what? It sold out at Kentucky Bourbon Fest in a day with even the whiskey geeks. They would come up and they'd be like, I'm not drinking that. I am not drinking that. That's 80 proof. And I would just be like, guys, come on, dude. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, just taste it. And they were surprised. It's not about just,
yeah.
People aren't, there was intention with this being 80 proof. It wasn't like we just took whiskey and just watered it down. No, we created it before that, which means that our barrel proof entry, this gets really geeky. I don't want to get into it, but it's just like what the entry proof was very low, so that, it all worked together in a way that it's really special. And I'm super excited about it. And I want people to taste it. I want people to feel welcome the way I did. Like when I started, there wasn't these kind of rules, and I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know what to, like you have to.
Talking about.
There were, but it was
totally understand what you're talking about, and I think a lot of our listeners do too. Where whiskey at one time, it almost became pretentious. It almost became a little bit pretentious, like how we viewed wine for a while as well, right? Like I'm not going to try that, but the geeks were kind of telling us, what we,
I'm just got so tired of it. Honestly, it's just, it really, like, if you're a geek and you're listening, relax, it's supposed to, this was originally an agrarian working class spirit. I mean, this is where it comes from at its heart, right? Whiskey was made, it's wherever you had water, yeast, and grain, some farmer was going to turn that into a distilled spirit because it was better than watching your grain rot or trying to transport it. You're like, might as well distill it. Okay, good. Party on. It's like, it's just, it gets exhausting for the new consumer. Look, I think Scotch, I was in Scotch early on. There was a little bit of that. But when I was working at the Scotch malt whiskey site in Edinburgh, I mean, these guys would just come in, and I'm going to say guys, because they were predominantly, they were cool. They were like, yeah, give me, they just wanted some cool whiskey. They weren't really like, yeah, this is how you have to drink it. And this is hazmat. And I don't like it because of it. I mean, not liking something before you even tasted it is just, well, it's a bit childish, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right? I completely agree with you. And you just mentioned something, and I really wasn't going to go there, but I think that I want to go there if you're willing to go there with me just for a minute, because whiskey, especially amongst all the spirit categories, has been so male dominated. It always has been. There's always been women working in some sort of capacity and drinking it. Something that drives me absolutely fucking insane is like, do you want to be on a whiskey and women panel? No,
No,
I haven't.
never.
I actually haven't.
I have. I don't even want to go.
I fought on it too. Like, why do we have to call it that? Why can't we just call people in whiskey? I don't know.
Right. Look.
Right? Any views on that?
My views on that seem to change like the wind, but I can tell you where I am today. And maybe it's a controversial take. I've been in whiskey. People started interviewing me on women in whiskey since in 2005 or 6. So we're going on 20 years. It's been 20 years now. And it's a story that's been beaten to death by groups of new women getting into the industry. And my thing is like, maybe it's true. Maybe women just don't love it as much as men do. That's the truth. I mean, as a consumer, it doesn't mean that we're not working. It doesn't mean, that's where I am today. And that's a really controversial take. And I get it. But if you look at 20 years and we're still talking about the same thing, women have a lot of other shit going on. They've got childbearing years. Maybe they don't want to be sitting around drinking high proof whiskey while they have to wake up tomorrow, morning at 6 a.m. So there is going to be there's a lot of other stuff that women, the emotional labor they take in the house. We know all this research now that they're stretched thin. They're predominantly with the childcare. And I started to wonder, leave them alone. If they don't want to drink high proof spirit right now, why push it? Why, and I agree with you in terms of like having no more of this women in whiskey and all that. Like just be. And, it's a privilege to be able to spend your evening drinking high proof alcohol. And, let's respect that maybe, like they're doing other things right now. And as you get older, and I noticed that women, as they age a little bit more, you're going to see it's a little bit easier for them to get into the spirit. And then like in your early 20s, I'm seeing that women, going out for cocktails and things like that. So I think we have to think about those things. And that's what some of the research that I actually was looking at for a big brand, there are other things on women's mind, and it's fine. Don't make them feel like we should all like, if there's something wrong with you because you're not drinking whiskey or the world. It's like 20 years of this and it's the same thing. Well, maybe they're not interested right now. Maybe it's, you want to get women when they're not exhausted. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know for sure. That's my take today. And then maybe offer up some really nice cocktails, or maybe part of it, Bridget, is there's not like a Provisions bourbon, which is just a nice, easy sipping cocktail, and put it on ginger ale and don't worry about it.
Right. I do agree with that. And I do think on the flip side, like something that needs to be celebrated, something that needs to be just praised is being a woman entrepreneur in this space. Because there's not there's not enough of us. Okay, yeah, one thing drinking it, fine. But as a blender, as a CEO, as a founder, there's just not enough women in this space, period.
Oh,
For that, I
100%.
want to give you your flowers, as they say.
Thank you.
Whether you like it or not, you're breaking barriers. You are breaking that glass ceiling. And you're in such a small group of people that are doing this. And it's important for generations to come to see someone like, hey, if Heather Greene can do it, I can do it too.
That's nice. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's it's such a complicated, the gender whiskey thing is just it changes, it's evolves 20 years of this, it's like I said, from the consumer standpoint, I'm now like, just leave them alone.
Mm-hmm.
Let the women drink what they want.
Yeah.
Want to drink. From a entrepreneurial standpoint, yeah. I mean, there's not enough of us, I guess, like running companies. And you do, I would say I can only talk from my personal experience. So I don't want to speak on behalf of all women because we are not a monolith. But I think from the entrepreneurial perspective in whiskey, what has to happen a lot is that we are doing our business and then constantly, how are we sounding during our business? Are we striking the right balance, especially in a male dominated field? That's just the way it is. We don't exist in a vacuum, right? So, and this isn't, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if it's just unique to whiskey. I think probably my guess is gaming, probably. It's like a lot of the same kind of feel to it. I'm guessing, some of the tech and other STEM fields. So you're always constantly wondering, how you're being perceived as you chat. And we don't have the same freedoms of expression, emotion, things like that. So you have to be careful. And I work on it every day. I'm not great. I lose my shit, when things don't go right. But, sometimes I feel like it's not acceptable for anybody, but, it feels a little bit more risky as a woman to show anger or anxiety or mostly anger or frustration. You got to no one wants to see that. It feels like sometimes.
Yeah, it does. But we're all human and we all have those emotions. And I don't think there's anything wrong with
well, as a leader,
yeah. Even as a leader, like, oh, I can totally relate to that. You just become more and more relatable. Right. So
it depends. I don't know.
Oh, I think that, I think authenticity is important. And I do think that you come across very authentic. So
I care about my employees very much. I care about my staff. I care about my business.
Yes.
I care about what we're trying to do, what we're trying to say. I care about change.
Yes.
I care that if Milam Greene becomes what I want it to become when it comes to, like, especially provisions, knocking the crown off some crowns, if you know what I mean. Can I say that publicly? Yeah. So, if I can show that success, then the women part doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for women after me. But I don't know. I mean, every day is different. Sometimes there's advantages to being a woman in the room. Let's call that's honest too. It's just, it's a lot that you have to navigate, and it's a pleasure, I'm sure, that men don't realize they have, that they never have to navigate it.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I want to shift gears for just a moment, and I want to talk about American bourbon. Mm-hmm. You have traveled the world. You have spent some time in Scotland, obviously in Kentucky, and everywhere where whiskey is the star. So how do you see American bourbon really stacking up on the world stage compared to Scotch and Japanese whiskey, Japanese whiskey is getting so much attention right now?
Mm-hmm. You mean from like a taste profile, like how it stacks up from a taste?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm excited about international. I think we haven't even tapped into that as an American whiskey. I mean, to me, it's like they're going to be excited when we finally get access to, I don't know what's going on today in, the economic environment, like what every day changes. So I haven't looked at it today.
Yeah, it's
You can tell me. And by the time this podcast comes out, who knows?
Something new again. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that there is a tremendous coming from living in Europe for a long time. So I lived in Paris for a long time as well as Scotland. Like I was just in France in August, and wow, like there were some really cool cocktail bars, and really, there were a lot of people drinking, spritzes and cocktails, and they seemed really excited when I went to the cocktails bars and I told them what I did. They were just wanted to show me. And there's a lot of opportunity there in Europe. They're very excited about the cocktail culture. They're excited about American bourbons. And I think there's just from that. I mean, you go to Bar Convent Berlin, just the energy. We get calls all the time from around the world. When are you going to be in this country? Can we get you, here? And I think that the challenge isn't that there isn't a market out there. It's just getting to that market and getting to those people. I'm just thinking something like when I think about some of this stuff, like, like trying to get women, it's like, I guess it's just like, stop trying so hard. Just be, just be. And I'm out there, and the fact that I'm there and doing these tastings and just being out there is enough. We don't have to keep pushing it. I
agree. God, I agree with that 1,000%. Just be there doing your thing and it'll happen.
And I guess that's what I mean. In 20 years, we've been trying to recruit, and it's just like, stop recruiting. We're still in the same place. Just support the women in the industry, and they'll come. They'll say, oh, look, Heather Greene's hosting a tasting. I'm not going to feel alienated because the woman running the tasting, the person running the tasting is a woman, so like, let's just do that and stop talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather talk about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, and what you're doing.
It's a lot, to be honest. It's a hell of a lot more interesting.
It is very interesting. It is very interesting. And, for me, I guess it's just, you are breaking barriers, and
Thank you.
You need to just be respected in addition to all the wonderful things that you do. For
that is so awesome that you say that.
Like, I respect you. I really do.
Thank you.
I think that it's wonderful what you're doing, and you really are paving. And I'm a mom, and I'm a mom I have a daughter who is going to be a senior, who is a senior in college. And it's important to have those people that are breaking barriers. Like it's important, whether you like it or not, Heather. You're doing God's work. There you go.
Oh my God, I needed to hear that. Thank you, because it does feel tough sometimes. It's just like, oh my God, but it's not. And it's interesting. What you're saying is like, it's not the whiskey. It is, but it isn't. It's really just trying to run a company, trying to lead, trying to do the right thing, and just talking to you. And it's like, there aren't actually it's not a huge history of it. There are, that's not to say there aren't a lot. That's not what I mean, but it's like, there's very unique things that you have to think about as being a women leader. There just are. We're different, so, and then being an entrepreneur on top, being an entrepreneur is just insanity. That's the only word I can tell you about it.
Yes. And I love how you said, like, fear should be your co-pilot as a business owner. Like, yeah. Every day I'm fucking scared.
Bridget, fear every morning. It's like it's like I'm having a birthday party every morning, and invited to the party is fear, anxiety, uncertainty, challenge. Each one has a name, right? And they're all sitting at that table with me. And there's also like excitement. It's like all of it. And you're just like, okay, you settle down. You're not allowed to talk right now, and you're not allowed to talk, but I need to hear from you over there. Creativity, there's a lot of, being an entrepreneur, like there's a lot of stress, but if you are wanting to be creative, and we talked about it at the beginning, like there's discipline, there's, when we talked about music and the art of distilling itself, it's like, there's the technicality, there's the there's the discipline, there's like the running the scales on your fingers out of the piano, or there's like some, the chemistry involved. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be creative as an entrepreneur, you have to shut that out to get creative, because we know now that the part of the brain that has fear and anxiety interferes with the executive functioning, which is where creativity comes from. And it's, as an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm always trying to balance those two parts of my brain.
Yeah. Well, because you are trying to balance it like all the time, but you can also let that be your superpower and let one kind of fuel the other, like, with complicated.
Yeah. You got to switch. You got to switch. You got to switch back and forth. And
but you do have to be brave, and you do have to be, you are brave, and you're putting your foot forward even when you're fearful or you're second guessing, right? Because sometimes in those moments is when something totally rad happens, something so amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it is. You have to look for that stuff, because the negativity or the difficulties in creating a business and growing a business it's like the challenges are what always needs to get done, right? You're always pushing and moving rocks out of your path. I always think of it as like, also in the morning, I wake up as an entrepreneur and, you have a giant pile of rocks and you're just like, okay, let's move these out of the way and make a step forward. And then you go to bed and the next morning they're there again. And it's just, that is what it is. That is what it, and you just have to kind of, in a lot of ways, I just have to run on that treadmill and just wake up and be like, I'm fine moving those rocks every freaking day because they're there. We started Milam Greene 5 weeks. I think we started about like deciding we're going to go big and national like 5 weeks before the pandemic.
Oh God.
And then there was that. And there was, I feel like everything's been thrown at us, every single thing you can imagine. And you just have to, each day it's that pile of rocks. You just like, okay, what's next?
But you roll with it, right? And like you said, you get through it and you find your path. And that's part of
you navigate a path. And anyone who says now, like they know how to do it, there is there is nothing that's the same anymore. What's going on?
Yeah.
So it's not only that you have to move the rocks out of the way, or, you have to navigate. You're navigating in a way that like there isn't precedent. There isn't like, oh, well, what did that person do during the time that there was post-pandemic, that a correction in the market or this going on and that going on. And, oh, by the way, all the entire digital, aspects of building a business that there's nothing. We're all navigating.
Playbook. There's no,
that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. There's zero playbook right now. You are just not winging it, but I think that you have to just be extra thoughtful on how you're moving those rocks, what you're doing. I mean, you
try every day. Yeah, absolutely.
You can do. And then maybe at some point in your career, you'll look back and be like, oh, the way that I moved those rocks was fucking awesome. I'm going to write a book about that. And I'm going to create the playbook.
Well, we could. Yeah, I could. But you also have to remember, you want to remember what rocks you moved that you shouldn't have, or that you couldn't.
Absolutely.
So, there's that too. Lessons, I think, for any entrepreneur or someone building a company, I think self-awareness is good. Saying like, oh, I screwed up. How do I learn from this? I mean, that is hard. It is so humbling. I was super naive. I think anyone who starts off that tries to be a CEO or build a company, Bridget, I think there's an incredible amount of naivete. And I am the number one person to say, like, I knew a lot about whiskey. I worked for a lot of businesses. I helped a lot of other brands do really well. I wrote the book on whiskey, or a book on whiskey, or can we say the book? I wrote a book on whiskey. All that stuff. Thank you. And then it's like, I can do this, and then you're just like, oh shit. Okay. All righty. Calling people like, I really need to know how all these tabs, these enormous tabs work on Excel, and how to navigate these cells. And like, you just have to like there's that gritty part. I'm kind of kidding. I know how to work Excel, but you do have to Yeah, there's that stuff. There's that technical
Yeah,
stuff.
there's
That's
like the
really,
not the sexy stuff, right? Not the fun.
oh my God. There's a lot.
There's more not fun stuff. But don't you feel like if you knew, I think it's good that you kind of go in just being a little oblivious to some of the things. Because if you knew, maybe you wouldn't have done it.
Oh, no way. Hell no.
I'm gonna do this, all this shit. No. But
Hell no. There's no way if someone told me you're going to do this and then there's going to pandemic's going to happen. And then you're going to like freak out because you don't know if you're going to even keep your business alive. And then you're going to have, a lot of employees that you're going to really care about. And you're going to put all your heart and soul in the whiskey, but then there's going to be this happening. And then this tariff thing is going to, whatever.
yeah.
Then you're going to have to do this thing and you're going to have to, oh my God, no way. I would have said no way because I would have said, I don't have experience in that.
Yeah.
But yes, well, nobody did. And even now,
You don't
and
know
even if they said like, you don't have a magic 8 ball where they're like, oh yeah, there's going to be an entire course correction. It's going to spike and the whiskey industry is going to be tremendous and everybody's going to feel like they're living high on the hog. And then it's going to be like a complete disaster. And all the media is going to say it's going out of business. And now you got to navigate that. And you're like, oh, really? Yeah, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to go work for Danny Myers again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to stay where it's safe and calm and the bathwater.
Yeah.
We're here. Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have said yes to that, but here we are. Right.
But you did. But you did, and you've made it through, and you continue to make beautiful products, beautiful, beautiful things that everybody be
My
so happy
God, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Beautiful products, beautiful packaging, and just, that means a lot to me, that you like the book. And it means a lot to me about what went into provisions and to get that to as many people as possible in a way that was like intentional drinking, intention behind it. There's climate behind it. It's at a price point. It's texified, texified whiskey. Texification.
Have you put any thought about texified, like trademarking that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's in the process. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. So you heard it here first. No one steal that. We know where you stole it from. This is
That's right.
September 18th, 2025. Texification and Texified. You heard it here first. But there's just so much. I mean, I feel like I talk forever about being a CEO and entrepreneur in this environment. Well, it's just out of control.
I would love to have you back on Served Up actually, and just have a full conversation only about being an entrepreneur, because I do think that there is something that is so powerful that's there. Within that.
Yeah, I've been toying, Bridget, with like writing. I have been toying with writing a book called, I don't know what I want to call it yet, but it's just like, it's not about like, we see a lot of books about the success. And I'm not saying there's not success here. What I'm saying is that it's just more complex. Everybody wants to read the success stories and then finish, done, end of the book. I can do that too. What about the process? Like a little bit more about some of the failures that you are going to encounter. Mindset is a big one. Mindset's huge. It's that fear. It's not only mindset for yourself, but when you pick staff or hire staff, like, do they have the mindset to weather this? Because it's not easy for them. And how do you support them?
You cannot teach. There are some things you cannot teach, Heather. There's some things you hire that people need to come on board with just that. That's something.
Yeah. You don't know. And I don't think sometimes they know. I think it's like very exciting for someone to join an entrepreneurial company, but then it's another thing when, you have to pivot all the time. The decisions are made and then the decisions change again as you get new information, especially now. Legalities change every day. Your sales, you're always pivoting pretty quickly. And I know because I work for larger brands and you don't do that. You didn't used to do that where other companies, here's your brand plan, here's your strategy, and go. Yep. And then 2 months later, something happens where that strategy doesn't work anymore. Some economic headwind, something in the news cycle. That's what happened to us. Look, we were about to release a product called the Guadalupe Bass on our wildlife series, which we will. But you plan it, you're ready to go. And then the Guadalupe River flooded and it was tragedy. You pivot. it's like, we're not releasing. That's not the right time to release it. And, those are the decisions, like the best laid plans are going to be changed. We had a plan to go right into London last year and then boom, tariffs. So, it's about constantly being aware. And those are like big ones, but there's all these little ones too. And you have to strike that balance of staying the course, but pivoting as well. And that is very hard for some people. Like, we're changing again. Like, yeah, we're changing again. Forecast change again. Or make more of this product or less of this product. You're trying to balance that all the time.
Don't you feel like that's been part of your success? Like, staying nimble, being willing to make those shifts and to make those changes and to being open, right? To when things happen and not being hard-headed and being like, well, no, we're going to stick to this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is, we have been able to be nimble, but I don't know. It's not easy, but you're right. You can't be hard-headed and say, well, this was the plan, so now we're going to stick to it. But you also have to at a certain, sometimes just be like, we just got to stick to this plan. Like, it's just knowing when to and when not to is an art form right now. I'll tell you that much.
I just want to leave you with one last question, and it's kind of a big one because, and I do hope that you'll come back on Served Up
anytime. Are you kidding? I love this.
I want you to come back. I want to dig more into you and entrepreneurship and all of it. But how do you, Heather? How do you want your legacy in whiskey to be remembered?
The way you said what you said about my book, I feel like I've achieved it on that level. So from a whiskey perspective, hearing what you just said about my book and being an inspiration, and I get a lot of letters. I get a lot of stuff from women about that. And even men who's like, this is great for my daughter. It's like, to me, that is, I got to own that. I forget about it because I'm so driven about the company right now. And it was nice to stop and pause and say like, wow, that's really nice. It means a lot. I'm really humbled by that. So from a legacy on that perspective, I feel like that's in the works from a whiskey perspective. But my legacy from a business perspective is to make a category crushing whiskey company where now not only just the whiskey kids can look at me and be appreciative, but like just business people in general. Be like, look, she did it. That's what I want to do.
Well, you're doing it. And we, us whiskey fans, whiskey drinkers, I think on every level, from those who are curious to those.
Thank you.
I think that we all really appreciate you and your journey. It's something to be admired. And, with that, I want to wish you just some great health and a lot of peace. And just thank you, Heather, for being my guest here on Served Up. It's been phenomenal.
Thank you for letting me talk.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.